Good morning, everybody. We're going to get our property committee meeting started. It's 8:01. You'll see that we have a full agenda here, so I'm going to hand this over. We're going to start off with summer projects update by Doug Taylor from CHA, and then Doug and Colin from CHA are going to give us an update on the middle school project, and then we're going to hand it over to Mr. Watley for an update on operation projects, and then we're going to wrap this up with the, I think, highly anticipated capital improvement plan. We've been working on this for a while. I know Doug and his team have been, so we finally have that assessment done, and we'll be presenting that to the property committee. So without further ado, I will hand this over to Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much. Can you guys see the screen? Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. So thank you, Kara. Yeah, we have a lot of things going on. Everything is going mostly well, but I'm going to touch on where things are. So as Kara said, we have the summer projects update, which I'll present. Colin will take over with the middle school. Charles has the operations update, and then we'll wrap up with the capital improvement plan portion of the presentation. So the summer projects for 2025, we have one project that's moving forward in the early stages, waiting for students to leave the high school for their summer break. So the high school roof replacement phase 3 will commence in June, but we have the Erdenheim ramp and middle school track projects that need to wrap up from last year. So the middle school track project has absolutely been a challenge to wrap up here. We do expect the sod to start today, no later than tomorrow. Colin was on site yesterday and met with the contractor who is putting the sod down. They'll be installing that this week. So that will make this project feel mostly complete. The only piece remaining then will be the surfacing of the high jump area, which we are working on a color issue back and forth with the contractor. So once we resolve that, they will be out to coat that surface, and that will wrap this up. We have some minor punch list things to address, like the transition between the track and the concrete, where we're going to get some sealant in there to clean that joint up. But otherwise, this project will be wrapped up within the next week or so. The ramp project did wrap up. However, we had some issues at the end of last year with the surface of the concrete, where there was some cracking that the contractor repaired. We weren't aware of their repair technique, so we had some challenges with what they had done. We withheld some money. The contractor's been very cooperative, and they put a coating down on top of the entire surface of the ramp, which turned out very well. So this ramp is in good shape. The only thing that we have remaining here that we need repaired is the drainage swale at the bottom of the site, where the grading is a little rough. So when they are out working on the wrapping up the track project, they're going to come over afterward and clean that up.
Mr. Taylor, a quick question
Yes.
about the surface that they put on there. Is this like a thin eggshell like coating that's going to crack prematurely, like sooner than what you would expect for a typical concrete, or should we anticipate good longevity from this?
Yeah, we should. It's a good question. We should get 15 to 20 years out of this product. It's a Sika product. It's made for surfacing concrete. It's an elastomeric product, so it will move with the surface of the concrete a bit. So it's not a rigid material that will crack.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And then lastly is the high school phase 3 project. And, you know, I need to start out by saying last year's project with the roof was certainly a challenge. We had a challenging contractor. A lot of things happened that shouldn't have happened. We managed it. We did recover the monies that were spent by the district to address the issues that we encountered during that project. This process was different this year, where we went through a CoStarz process, but we documented the project. We selected 3 quality contractors to provide pricing through the co-stars. We had bid meetings like we would any public bid, and awarded to the lowest of the 3 that are all very good contractors. We have Procom Roofing back, who actually did the roof phase 1 2 years ago. A very good contractor. The other primary concern with this project, regardless of who does it, is one of these phases is over the natatorium. We want to make sure that that space is fully protected. So we, as part of the bid package, worked with a company called Tough Wrap that provides a sheet good that basically is custom fit over top of a space to ensure that nothing gets through to the surface below. And there's a sample of that over this ice rink. That is a temporary protective material that's put in over top. Ours is supposed to go over the ductwork, I believe. So we're going to see that go in first before any of that roof work starts. And that will be the first phase as well. We want to try to wrap that area up so that if the district desires to use that space in any way in the latter part of the summer, it'll be available for you. So the contractor is starting that the 3rd week of June once the students are out, and all of that work will be wrapped up by the end of August. What usually happens is there's some metal roof edge that has to happen after that, and that's primarily because they have to field measure a lot of those components, and then it's fabricated and installed. So we anticipate a good project with Procon. So that's all I had on summer projects. Are there any questions relative to summer projects? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Colin to talk about the middle school additions and renovations update. And Colin, just let me know when you want me to flip here.
So hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I'm overseeing the middle school project. So I have some really good updates. This job's been going very well for the first few months. The district has been excellent. Charles's team, Amy and Kieran, they've all been great, and the entire administration has been excellent to work with. They've even moved out of spaces early and got contractors in there early. So anytime we see that, we're like, yes, let's go. Let's start with construction. So currently we're working on phase 1A, and there's a point 1 and a point 2. Phase 1A point 1 is the existing stage that we're going to convert to the fitness and health rooms. So we're currently working in there, and I can give some updates on completed work and a couple photos here shortly. And we anticipate wrapping up that phase at the end of the summer here in 2025. Phase 1A point 2 is the longest duration for the project. So this is the auditorium addition. So we'll be working on this pretty much throughout the project into the summer of 2026, where we'd complete that phase and get it ready for that school year. Go ahead, Doug. Then as far as a site update, so obviously if you've been by the middle school, we have our staging area established out on the existing ball field. So we have our rock area to keep the mud off the roads. We have our construction trailers in place. We have topsoil and other stockpiles in place. And the site contractor that's working under Bracy Construction, the general contractor, has been excellent to work with. They've been keeping a very neat and clean site. They have all new equipment. So anytime a contractor shows up with brand new machines, it's always a good sign, right? So and then for this summer, we're going to kind of continue working on that auditorium and stage area. We've been cranking away on site demolition and stormwater improvements to reroute storm around the addition. And eventually in the near future here, we're going to be starting to work on an underground basin just behind the existing building. Come June and August, we're going to be in the front lot, which is the lot where the current main entrance is. We'll be doing some improvements out there to that parking lot. There's another underground basin number 2 that's going to go in over that summer. And we anticipate tearing that area apart over the summer, putting it all back together, base pave it, temporary stripe it, put signage up, and have it ready to go for the next school year. And then in June, from June 25 to December 25, we're going to be working on the kind of where the tree of life is, we call it, that giant memorial tree out there, which is, always comes to mind when we're working out there. It's like, hey, we got to protect that tree. That thing is special. So we're going to have a mini staging area out there where we're going to be working on the new main entrance, which, will become the new main entrance. So we'll have some temporary fencing and a small staging area in that area as well. And Doug, I just wanted to hit on, if you could go back one, I'm sorry. I wanted to hit on the landscape buffer. So this was actually part of the track project, and Doug was able to work with the township and move it over to the larger project. So these are just some tree plantings alongside Bergen Road, just behind the neighbor's property line. And those trees went in over the last week or so here. So we got those done, and the contractor promised they'd be in before the end of April, and they followed through. So that's just some completed work there that got done.
Thank you, Colin.
Go ahead, Doug. Okay, so just as a quick update for phase 1A.1, so this is the stage and fitness area again. So we completed the owner move out. We've installed the temporary dust partitions and construction partitions in those phases. That way we have our separation zone between the occupied space and our renovation area. We've completed a majority of the selective demolition in that area. The existing stage floor was removed, and then we had to do a plywood infill. So that work's been completed, and I have a beautiful picture of it on the next slide. And we've started to do our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough ends in that phase. There's not a whole lot. There is some duct work, there is some electric, not so much plumbing, but the guys are working on that next. And from there, we're going to be starting on cold form metal framing and drywall, which will kind of seal up those new partitions. And then we continue with above ceiling work. Go ahead, Doug. Here's just a couple pictures. So the picture on the left, you can see that new plywood floor and fill. So what this does is this kind of gets the floor back to a level condition. So when we put the new fitness, kind of rubber material flooring down on there, everything will be even throughout that area and have a nice smooth finish for a fitness area. You can see some ductwork staged, and from me taking this picture and to having today's meeting, that ductwork is now in the air. You can really see how clean the guys are keeping the site, which is always great to see. It's a neat work area. All the guys are very meticulous on staging materials, cleaning up at the end of the day. And you don't always get that on these low bid jobs. So, it's a really good sign. I know Charles has been through there, and it's like, man, this is a clean site. And, we appreciate that. And we continuously share that with the contractors. Like, hey, you guys really set the bar high here in this first phase. So you got to keep it there throughout. So it's really good to see. The picture on the right, thought this was a good picture to share. So that's the existing gym, and you can see where the stage was. And in front of it now is that the new partition, which is now a temporary construction partition, which will then be converted into a permanent partition. So the guys do have some of the high impact drywall in place, and they're going to come back and finish the top row in the summertime when school lets out. So that's in place. We have we're trying to seal up some of the existing openings that weren't really there. We're putting some plastic over them. Just trying to keep as much dust from getting into that gym as possible. And it's a daily fight. Especially when you're in the demo phase, when you're taking out wood and you're taking out block. It is a dust generating activity. So the contractors have been great. They've had the negative air machines in place, where the demolition work has occurred, and they've taped and sealed with plastic as much as they can just to keep the dust from the gym. So you go to the next one, Doug. This is just a rendering, just to remind everybody of how that space looks now and what it, is anticipated to look like. And I know there may be some changes between now and, when we finish with, graphics and whatever is selected and colors and stuff. But you can kind of get a feel for what this space is going to become. And it's always good to look ahead and see what we're working towards. And we're really excited to have a nice new fitness area for the students and staff. Phase 1A.2. So I have a couple pictures for this one, and for Dr. Yannicone, I put this one particularly in there for you because I know you were very excited to get this canopy demolished. So the team worked over spring break. They got that canopy taken down. They began the stormwater relocation, and that's generally completed. They're continuously working on the soils exchange, and just to remind everybody, there were some. When Doug did his due diligence in the beginning of the product, they found where that addition goes. There's kind of some blown in fill, which was loose, uncompacted material, and also it was saturated. So you kind of had a double whammy of bad material there. So in the job, we we've already told the contractor that, hey, you have to pull that material out, either dry it or bring in some new material and then replace it, recompact it. And so far, the process has been going really well. Our borings were pretty much spot on of where the depth of good material started and where the bad stuff stopped. So we've been able to haul a lot of that material out, kind of lay it out on the site, and the weather has been great over the last couple of weeks to do this. It's been a little wind and a little sun, so that material has dried out great. We have the geotech there testing and observing the compaction rates as we put it back in. So that's kind of continuous work. It's a slow process. So you guys you've seen a lot of action right away. Now you're just seeing dirt happening for a while, and that's the soils exchange process. There's material going out of the site. There's some material coming in. There's some drying in between. There's some, open holes, and then, we put the new fill in and compact it and bring it back up to where we need it to be. After that process, then you start to see foundations going in, some of those larger retaining walls that are for the auditorium addition, and just continuing with site stormwater and that underground basin out back. So the underground basin out back is probably the next big site activity. So it's an underground basin. It's not a chamber basin that you would often see with the concave dome structures. It's simply perforated pipe and then filled with stone. And that basin is we had a pre-installation meeting last week for it with the contractor, and they're ready to begin on that work. So that should be happening in the very close future. And of course, the bus can't be done.
Colin, hang on just
Yep.
1 second. It looks like Miss Bell has a question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, can you go back one slide? Because I'm the parent that's always complaining about this area, because this is like my arch nemesis area. Because I have a middle school student and I drop off and I pick up, and this area with the circle is always the area that drives me the craziest. And I'm guessing too, whoever it was, I can't recall, that was referring to the tree of life is the tree I'm always asking to remove within this section, because I know from living here that we have very bad summer storms that roll through quickly and powerfully and take out a tree like it's a toothpick. And I just want to make sure that if this tree goes over, it's not going to take out the school. In the past, I knew it would take out the canopy, but I figured the school building itself would be protected. But now that the canopy is gone, I just want to make sure that the school is protected if that tree goes. And I thought we did talk about making the circle bigger. I just wanted to make sure, is that still going to happen?
So the actual bus drop-off area, we are going to clean up some of those hard turns with some eased radius, but the area itself will be mostly unchanged. However, we're going to be painting some lines in to control traffic a little bit better around that loop to establish where you can pull over and where you continue to drive through. As far as the tree and potential risk to facilities, that's a difficult question to answer. I don't know the height of the tree and the distance from the center of the tree to the building and which way it would go if there were a storm that were to take it down. That's a challenging question to answer, to be honest.
Sorry, it's just once you've had a tree hit your house, you look at trees very differently in life. And I see that it's a huge tree. And I always think that after we've had a tree hit our house, I always think if that tree hits the school, that's going to do some damage. But I know that the large buses have a very difficult time in that circle, which I know they're not really supposed to be in, but during like pickups for, sports and things, the large buses do go in that circle. And I know with the truck deliveries to the cafeteria, it's a tough, very tight turn, probably mostly where that tree is.
Yeah, I know that, excuse me, the civil engineer looked at turning radiuses relative to trucks and access to loading docks and the such as this project was designed. We can certainly go back and confirm that as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mrs. Bell, if I can just, you and I have had multiple conversations about that area, and Doug did mention the turning radius. They have been looking at what are the vehicles that need to go through that circle? What kind of turning radiuses do we need? And there is some, as he said, some pretty significant changes in striping and traffic flow that are planned for the end of the project. With regard to the tree, Charles does speak with an arborist who does come out to the site and check all of our trees. We have a number of mature, really tall trees. One of them is directly in front of the administration building, right there at the curve. And we have a number of trees throughout all of the campuses that are very mature and that the township has a significant interest in us trying to retain. So the arborist helps us to decide, does a limb need to come off? Do we need to make adjustments and pruning? And they are well aware that the goal here is to maintain the tree to the extent that it can be safe at that main entrance. And I do want to thank Colin and the team for getting the canopy down for the committee. Part of the reason why we wanted that canopy down this summer is that there was a lot of conversation about whether we needed to replace the canopy. And the replacement of the canopy had a cost estimate, I think just in excess of $500,000. And we're going to be extending the windows to the cafeteria, just about doubling, I believe, the natural light coming into the cafeteria. So it's our hope that the students can make adjustments by waiting inside the cafeteria when they're waiting for a ride and such, if the weather is poor, so that we can save that $500,000 and not replace the canopy. And that's the current plan, not to replace it. And allow a lot more natural light into their living space during lunch. So we want to just sort of test our theory that they don't need the canopy by seeing how the spring and fall go. So fingers crossed the students will adjust accordingly. They seem to at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I know the tree is healthy. I don't doubt the health of the trees. It's just more of the summer storms that we've seen in this area over the last several years have taken out trees like they're toothpicks. Big, beautiful, like ginormous trees. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so just back to the slides here. So a couple pictures just from the site. I know they're not as great to look at as some of those interior shots, but you can kind of see, where we're working on, creating the building pad for the addition. So this is the area where the stormwater relocation is occurring, and then also where we're doing that soils exchange that I mentioned. Another key activity I didn't actually put in the PowerPoint, but I probably should have, was we had to relocate a water line over spring break. And actually a little bit before spring break, we actually did it over a weekend. So obviously, whenever you're doing utility work that could impact the building, it's always a challenge during the school year. So we were able to work with the general contractor and their sub, as well as Charles's team, and they made it look easy. They came in over the weekend, they had the water line already laid in place. They did a quick shutdown, they retested and resanitized that line, got it back in operational for the start of school. So that was a key activity that occurred over a weekend, and I have to give the team props because they did an excellent job and they really did make it seamless. Go ahead, Doug, you can go to the next one. This is just, again, this is what we're working towards for the auditorium, right? So a nice rendering. Hopefully in the summer of 2026, I'll walk all of you through here and say, here's the, we made it look like the picture, I guess, right? That's the goal, right? So here's just a nice shot of what we're working towards. This is a drone shot. So we have a drone pilot that comes out monthly. They take some pictures, and you can see this is, where we're at on site, the bird's eye view. So like I mentioned, you can see the staging area. There are trailers there now. There are trucks there every day. You can see where the auditorium is going to go. And, just a general view of the back of the site. The temporary construction fence is in place, erosion and sediment control, BMPs are in place. I will say the biggest challenge on this site is how tight it is and how much traffic there is at times during the day. So we did a lot of planning, ahead of construction, and did our best to kind of minimize that impact. The district team has been flexible and they've been great, and same for the construction team. There's a lot of haul off of materials, a lot of incoming materials, a lot of outgoing dumpsters and things like that, and contractor traffic and bus traffic and staff. It's gone really well. working with the team, it's been great. I think everybody now has a feel for when the busy times are during the day, in the morning and at the end of the day, and avoiding those times to the best of their ability. And we always appreciate the front office giving us a call and saying, hey, there's a giant flatbed out here, somebody better come get him, he's pulling in. So, and that happens, is a lot. New drivers come in, they don't know where to go, and they see the school. So it's been really great working with everybody, and making that process, that small piece of the project that's very important, go really well. I think that's it for the site, Doug. So this is one I wanted to update the team on. So this is just a general snapshot of the project. It's a one-page sheet. You can pick it up, you can see it, you can see where the schedule is, for each of the various phases. You can see where we're at with payments. So far, none of the contractors have submitted any pay applications yet. So I'm surprised. Usually they're ready to go with their first pay app. So no money has really left the project yet, which is, hey, that's up to them. So as soon as we get their first pay apps in, which I will expect this month, that you will see some build monies leaving the account. So this is just a one-page sheet. There's some issues resolved, some issues in progress. Really, the only issue that we have ongoing right now, which isn't a major one, is getting actually Pico to come out and install temporary power to the staging area. So, as Pico does, they work at their own speed, and we're just trying to needle them as professionally and as little as possible to get them to come out and install that temp service to the trailers, and that way, as we go into the hot summer here, we'll have working air conditioning for the guys in the trailer. This time of the year, it's nice to work outside, and it's usually a time where they're not in the trailers as much. So, but come July, when it's 90 out, they like to have some air conditioning. So we're just gonna use all of our resources and contacts that we have for Pico from past projects in the area, and just work with them to kind of come out here and install our temporary service for the job. Other than that, the job's been going really well. It's becoming a team, which is great, which is what you want with a multi-prime contractor construction project. That's usually the biggest challenge, of getting everybody to work together towards the common goal. And as I like to say, keep everybody from the contractor end equally unhappy. So that's usually my job. So it's been a really great team. Everybody's willing to work with each other, and it's been going really great. And that's from the project management team for each of the primes, and also the superintendents and people in the field. So it's gone really well. And I think that's it
Thank
for
you.
the middle school update, Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. So I guess before we move to the next subject, I just want to thank the leadership of Dr. Yannicone and Kara, both for your efforts in leading the charge on this project on a daily basis, and also to Amy and Charles, who are living in the trenches with us on this project, and being very helpful and helping keeping this moving along. So thank you to the entire team. This section is reserved for Charles, I believe.
All right, good morning. Well, as Colin said, his job is to keep us happy, and my job is to keep the students and the teachers and the staff in the buildings happy. And we've managed to do that over the spring break. I'll tell you, we hung a mural in Enfield. Now, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but to them, it was the world. This mural went up in the library. We were talking about it for about a month. We couldn't figure out how to get it 20 feet up, but we did it, and the kids are excited. Second thing we did was we rebuilt the Gaga pit. Now, I never knew how much a Gaga pit meant to kids, but when we did it at Erdenheim, we got all new plywood, all new bolts, and we rebuilt that. I walked into the school, and they referred to me as Santa Claus. At first, I had to watch my weight because I know I'm eating good, but it was the giving part of it. So,
Mr. Wiley, I can attest. There was a very happy 10-year-old in my house that
thank you.
got that one back up. So thank
So
you.
those kids are very happy. Then we gave the auditorium in the high school a facelift. We painted it, gave it a refresh. I thought it was important because the LGI, or the Spartan Forum, as it's called now, was just facelifted and was redone. And so I felt that the auditorium, which stands right next to it, should have gotten a facelift, and we did that as well. Kids are very happy about that. Met with the CSG, that's our cleaning contractors, met with them, met with the vice president of operations. We have done a lot of work with the leadership. We changed out the account manager and the district manager and the operations manager as well. We sat down, we were formulating our game plan for the summer to make sure that the floors, bathrooms, trophy cases, and we're going to focus on windows, make sure that those spaces that the kids are going into and the staff are clean and safe. Our HVAC team, we replaced every filter in every unit of the school. So that has been done. We've also put up new signage around the district. What else have we done? Banners will be going up. I know it's been off and on windy, but banners will be going up soon. If you drive around the campus, we have new fresh mulch. So we're doing everything to make sure that visually the campus looks good, the campus is safe, and those spaces that the kids are in are well taken care of as well. Other than that, we're just continuing to do our work, drive around the district and respond to anything that is needed. That is it for what we are doing, putting smiles on faces. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Watley? And let me just please give a shout out to his leadership and his team. I was here over spring break and they were shaking and moving. They had a lot going on. I actually talked to Dr. Yannicone one day and said, I think you're going to be super happy when you get back. And she did schedule a tour with Charles, and I think she was really happy. His leadership and the work that they've done, I think if you drive through the campuses, you can see it. I can't say enough about the work that you guys do. Everything looks great.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr.
Thank
Taylor.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move into the capital improvement planning portion of the presentation and talk a bit about the process and what our team has done to prepare the plan. So I'm going to introduce the plan, talk about the recommendations, the 5-year plan, and then the tentative project schedule for a typical year each and every year that we manage the plan. So first and foremost, I do want to thank the team. Again, I want to thank Charles and the leadership team, the administration for helping us with compiling the information we needed to prepare the plan. While our team does come out, our integrated team of, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, roof experts, architects, we come out and take a look at your building. We also rely on the feedback from your team on what you know about some of the challenges. So we've incorporated that in the plan as well. The report, addresses the existing conditions and doesn't include additions or renovations or new buildings. It's basically a conditions survey of the building, so we can talk about what we need to do to bring them back up to current standards in the plan configuration that they exist. And that the implementation of a capital improvement plan will certainly extend the useful life of your buildings. So the plan is composed of 18 different tabs, and I will say that we will get these plans over to Dr. Yannicone and Kara. I'm not sure how they'll be distributed, but we can put these on a thumb drive. We can make a binder, or we can provide access to a site 24/7 through a link that these documents can be accessed. But there's an executive summary, and I'm not going to go over each section in great detail. There's a logic matrix with priorities. There's recommendations by facility and by priority. There's a comparison of renovations to improvements assessment, which I'll review, and also a warm, safe, and dry category to determine what projects minimally you should consider overall in a facility. A summary of the building systems so that we have a history of what the systems are in each building, including the roofs, profiles of all the different components that are at each one of these sites, from fuel oil to tanks to parking, boilers, chillers, all the systems you have. A list of completed capital projects. So moving forward, we'll list what projects were done, who did the work, so that we know who to contact down the road, or, hey, when was that project done? We can go back in the book and confirm. And then any environmental information that we compiled from the district. So first, the priority indexing. Again, we have prioritized each one of these based on the logic matrix, and I'll share that with you. But anything 9 to 10 is critical and should be addressed immediately. You're not going to find many of those because those are items that, you know, the district is generally jumping on top of. So it's rare we're going to have a 9 or 10, even 7s or 8s or something that, you know, Charles is likely taking care of as they arise, or we're working with your team to make sure we help. You'll see a lot of 5s and 6s. They're not necessarily prioritized within each priority. So if there's a list of 36s, they're all, you know, a level 6, but not necessarily in an order of importance in terms of that. And then as we go down, handicap accessibility is one that's a little bit of a challenge, and we score those all as a simple 1 only because, you know, that's subjective. And if there are issues at a school that need to be addressed, we can certainly move any of those to a 5 or a 6 or 7 or even a 10, depending on new students coming into the district, the needs that you may have at a respective facility, or as that student moves through the school system. So they can be addressed however the board would like to move those around. So the logic matrix, as you can see, there's a lot of categories here. We go through safety. Does the issue improve curriculum and delivery? Is there an educational impact from the item? Number of people affected a day, the actual physical conditions, the domino effect. If it's a roof leak and there could be environmental issues in a building, it's a greater domino effect than if it's just a single, you know, crack in a parking lot, let's say. What's the community impact? Are we interrupting an auditorium, a sports field, or something that affects the community's ability to utilize your facility? What's the life cycle economic impact, energy sustainability impact, and then age and remaining expectancy. So each one of these items is scored, and that's how we establish the priority for these items. And the importance factor, I should say, safety, impact to curriculum, and education are the 3 most heavily weighted items as we score these in the book.
Mr.
Yep.
Taylor, could I ask, just before we leave this slide entirely, on the scoring system, pardon me, the numbers aren't necessarily such as for access or for cracks in the sidewalk you mentioned, things like that. They're not necessarily code requirements, right? They wouldn't affect building closure. It's the scoring system is internal to your process. Is that do I understand that right?
Yes, that's a very good point. So these buildings, as they exist, are generally grandfathered relative to codes, right? So if the code today, which is far more stringent than it was in 1960, requires a certain width or clearance or height, and your building doesn't have that, if you're not performing any work in that facility in any major way, you're not required to upgrade that building at this time, right? Obviously, if we go and do a more major renovation, or depending on the level of alterations, then you need to start implementing some of those things across the building. But no, these priorities are based upon the categories that we have here. And if there was an issue that was concerning from a safety or code standpoint, we would list that in the comments and explain why.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the book contains narratives or summaries of each building, and this is just a couple sample pages. There's a cover page. It gives you the brief history of the building, the PDE capacity in the year that we're looking at the book, and the building square footage, the original build, when it was renovated, and then general building summary. But there's about 5, 6, 7 more pages that go on about all the different systems in the building, and it explains a history of each building. And one of these exists for each one of the schools. In addition, I just pulled out some of the things that are in the book, and this one I think is very important, is the the roof section where we have identified areas for each roof on each building. So this is the high school, for example, and we've identified an area for each roof. And then that ties into a plan like this. And I know it's not easy to see on your screen, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what you will see in the book. And this will explain to you at roof, each area, how many square foot that area is, what the roof system is, what the insulation is, when it was installed, what the warranty is, when each one of those areas will expire, so that we as a team can manage the replacement of these areas, responsibly and not say, oh my gosh, this roof's leaking. It should have been replaced 5 years ago. We had no idea. Now we're getting our arms around all the areas so that we can plan the work and try to minimize surprises down the road. So the next section of this is, and again, it's difficult to show these in a PowerPoint like this, but this is a sample page of priority by facility. And this is an example of the high school study. And on the left, you'll see the tab number. So tab 7 is where you'll find this building in the book when you're looking at the book. If you want to look at the summary, there's floor plans, there's site plans. It gives you a little history and you have everything at your fingertips. The item reference number comes from the bigger plan. If you take all of these buildings and you list all of the items we identified, they all have a unique number. So you'll be able to reference these as we put plans together down the road. We list the item itself, what we identified, the priority based on that logic matrix that we talked about. Then we put the value of the item. The cost that we believe it will be to address it, plus 30% fees and contingency to try to give us an estimated cost of each one of these projects. And I think it's important to note, we've looked at hundreds of items. We can't possibly do, physical investigations for each one of these items. So these are estimate of probable cost to get us close so that we're putting budgets together and Kara's looking at borrowing or, reserves. To do these projects, we have a good indication of what amount we might need each year to accomplish the task. And then each one is categorized. So if we want to sort by category, we can do that as well. And in the book, there's a list of abbreviations for what those categories are. And then, as I said, there are some notes on some of these so that you understand how we arrived at some of the costs or what other notes we felt we should put in the book. And this is the high school. It continues on a page 2 and ultimately down to, hey, here's the total cost of the items we identified at the high school as we walk through the facility, about $13 million worth of items. And again, many of those are ones, so you don't necessarily have to perform those at this time. And, we'll help you identify the higher need items to develop a 5-year plan to manage these items as we move forward. And there are spreadsheets like this, as noted in the bullet points for each one of those facilities. So you'll have the entire list of items to review. Any questions on that? Okay. So then we have a comparison of renovations to improvements. And this is where the book really starts to help us identify the bigger needs of the district. So for example, if we look at the high school, since I showed you those costs at the top, it was constructed in 1954. Just a little history. It's about 187,000 square feet. If you were to fully renovate this building at $325 a square foot, it would cost you about $60 million to fully renovate your building. If you were to just address the improvements that we're talking about, we're at about 13 million. So if you look at improvements as a percentage of renovations, you're at about 21%. And the reason that that's important is because if you're starting to hit 60%, you should say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be looking at summer projects and throwing, that money into the building each summer. Maybe we need to think about more serious renovations. And when you start to hit 70%, you start to ask, maybe it's not a renovation project. Maybe we need to replace the building, right? And those are just rules of thumb. Obviously, your budgetary constraints will dictate what you can and can't do, but it helps guide us in terms of what we should consider doing as we move forward with the respective facilities. So you can see you're in very good shape across the district. The only building that we truly identified as being problematic, and you're probably not surprised, is the transportation building. I know that we did a study a few years back, and that building has many challenges. A roof was put on it basically to keep it from failing from the top down, but there still are masonry issues, issues with the concrete, with the systems within the building. So that building definitely, is the one that we have to talk more about later in terms of, how you want to address the concerns there. But right now, they're functioning out of that building okay. So then the next question that comes up is, okay, you said that there's $13 million worth of issues at the high school, but how much of that money do we really have to spend to make the building warm, safe, and dry, right? So we create another document, and the orange categories are kind of the warm, safe, and dry categories. So we look at issues that would just affect those factors, mechanical equipment, door hardware, anything that would, address the warm, safe, and dry categories, roof systems. So sticking with the high school, we give you the history as we did. We said there's about $13 million worth of items. We talked about what the replacement cost is. But if you go over to the first column in orange, essential upgrade costs from CIP with 30% fees and contingencies, we're looking at about $8 million worth of items that really need to be addressed to address the warm, safe, and dry issues. So the other, several million aren't high priority in that regard. So this is a chart to kind of help you identify what needs to be addressed to keep the building warm, safe, and dry. Then we developed from all of this and worked with Kara and Dr. Yannicone, of course, on a draft 5-year plan. And it is just that. This is just a draft plan to help establish what projects should be considered each year over the next 5 years, and then begin to assess, what kind of monies would be required. And then you can start to manage the monies for these projects. And again, minimizing the surprises, which sometimes require you to go borrow money to address something you weren't planning for, which can result in, spikes in cost and taxes and things you just don't want to do. So this is, responsibly is a very good plan. You guys have been, as always, fantastic to work with as we've developed this. And we're starting out in 2026, pretty easy. We're not don't want to dive into this, head first, but the first couple items allow you to start maintaining some of the work that you have put in the past. The parking lot maintenance is something that's important, going in and repairing any areas that have cracks, that have potholes, anything that might be soft, and then putting a sealer on the entire lot and restriping to extend the life of the paving so that you're not going in, milling and overlaying lots, before you need to. So and again, remember, these costs all have the estimated fees and contingencies built in. So that's not just the construction cost. That's what we consider a project cost. We also, in this first year, talked about replacing the kitchen tile and base. There's some cracks going through the kitchen that are worsening at the high school. So that's something that we looked at this year. We know in the high school at the pool, there is a strong chlorine gas smell at the surface of the pool. So we want to go in and take a look and determine what that is and what we can do to address that. While we're there looking at that, it makes sense to just look at the entire natatorium HVAC system at one time to look at a total review of how that mechanical system is functioning. Replacing the pool deck tile. We know that the tile around the pool is a bit tired. And reviewing the sanitary piping in the facilities building. There's been a couple failures of that pipe, and failed sanitary piping that actually is overhead is not a desirable failure. So we want to try to get in there and take care of that. So, we're not having those problems down the road. And what I should say is you look at the item number on the far left, they all correspond to those lists of projects that you'll see in the book for all the facilities. So you can cross-check these as we go. Then we go to the summer of 26, and we're looking at milling and overlaying the tennis courts at the middle school and addressing the concrete stairs accessing those tennis courts at the middle school. while we're, performing the work there. And if you've seen those courts, you know that they've been repaired numerous times. There's definitely some tape patching underneath. There's some delamination of that tape patching, a lot of cracking. So that's a project. Again, this is a preliminary list, certainly subject to discussion, but these are the things that we looked at as a team. Moving to the summer of 28 at Erdenheim, we have the roof replacement with the new 25-year roof system. That roof will be out of warranty, I think, about 3 years at that point, getting to the 2028, but it is not leaking at this time. It's not problematic, but it, will need to be considered for replacement down the road. And I will also note that when we look at these projects in greater detail to assess what we need to do, we're giving you the cost to put a new 25-year roof system on. If, however, we come out and we assess the roof and we do some infrared scanning, we take some cores and find, hey, the insulation's dry, this roof surface is one that could lend itself to a coating that would allow us to extend the life 10 years at a more minimal cost and allow us to stretch the monies out. We'll talk about those things and we'll work together to try to make sure we're managing all of these projects responsibly. But we're going to put the replacement cost in the plan so we're not going the wrong direction when we get to the project. And then the synthetic turf system at the stadium and at the multi-purpose fields are also by around 2027 or at their 10-year mark. And they, we are finding that these fields, the fibers start to permanently, bend down. They're not the same fields that they were from a performance standpoint. And certainly you have to continue to check the Gmax rating on the fill. And it's a chance to put a pad underneath that to improve the safety of those fields at the same time. They now have a pad that goes beneath the turf to make them even safer than they are. So those are the projects projected for 28. For 29, we put in the plan to replace the unit ventilators at Erdenheim, similar to what we're doing at the middle school with those unit ventilators next summer. They are vertical unit ventilators, and they are a little noisy. So, and we'll be, getting near the end of their useful life as well. So that's something to consider in 2029. And then in 30, we're looking at putting a new surface on the all-weather track at the high school. And again, modifying the secure entry vestibule at the high school. There is a security measure at the high school already. You do have to, page in. You can't just walk in. But once you're in, it's not the same as some of the other buildings that have the ability to kind of control from the front of the security area. So that's something that we would look at down the road. What I would also say about this plan is it is dynamic, and we may find things that happen in the first year or two that shuffle projects around or push a project down the road a year because something else comes up in the interim that has to be inserted in its place. And we'll continue to update this plan and manage it each and every year for the district, working closely with Charles and Kara and Dr. Yannicone and team. And then lastly, just an idea of how ideally we would manage these projects. We would get the board approval, on at least the budget for the projects for a certain year, perform our site investigations no later than October through November, because some of these projects could be impacted by weather. So if we need to get out and do surveying, we need to make sure we look at a roof surface or paving or whatever it may be before, snow falls from the sky. Prepare the bid documents November through December. Get the project out to bid in January so that we're beating everybody else out to the street putting projects out to bid, because we have more hungry contractors ready to go and we can get them lined up. They want to get jobs in their books, have mandatory pre-bid meetings in January, open them publicly in February, and then review them with you and award them in February of 26. Now they can procure all the materials they need. They have a couple months to order and get everything ready to go. And then come June, when students leave, they can hit the ground running. They're ready to go. They have their products. and we wrap up in 26. Or if it's a project like Erdenheim's HVAC, you likely cannot get the equipment in time to do it that summer, but we would still bid it, award, have them order the equipment so that in 27 they're ready to go when that summer project comes. So it just depends on the nature of the project, but that's generally the schedule we'd like to run by on these summer projects each year. And that is an overview of how the plan works. And I find it far more exciting than the presentation. I love the books that we issue. I'm proud to prepare those and work together with you on these plans. So any questions?
Before we jump into questions, just let me jump in really quickly here. So thanks, Doug and team, for all the work, because as you can see, this is very robust. Again, we will be providing copies or links for you guys to see the whole binder and the entire items by building and priority. But I just wanted to, before questions started, I wanted to go over and kind of summarize how Dr. Yannicone, myself, Charles, and Doug looked at the information that was collected and kind of prioritized and looked at things over the next 5 years. And I do want to say and reiterate what Doug said, that it is a fluid document that, as we get into one summer project or we start something that might reprioritize the way things are. As Doug mentioned with the Erdenheim roof, there might be some alternatives where we can go in a different direction. But at this point, putting everything in as far as what we saw being as priorities with 6 is in the books and things that needed to happen. We talked about the natatorium. I think the natatorium has been a discussion for a while. And as much as I would love to tear it down and do everything that we need to do to it, that is right now we're having landscape issues, we have financial issues, we have other things that have a priority, but we do believe that there needs to be some work in there. So we prioritized some of the ongoing issues with HVAC, that gas smell, and then the safety issue of the tiles, making sure that those are replaced. The other areas, listen, it's not fun. It's not, to replace turf, but it has to be replaced. We went with the decision to go turf fields on 2 of our fields, so we have to maintain those. So those had to be put in a plan. One of the things that I talked to Doug about is I wanted to make sure that we presented a plan that showed everything that we needed to. So while we take a look at roof and air ventilators, maybe turf doesn't seem like it's a thing that needs to happen, but it does because we made the commitment to go turf and you have to keep that commitment up. So that has to be a part of the plan. The other areas in the plan, as far as the milling and the overlaying, we want to get proactive. I think since I've been here, we've talked about that, getting proactive on the operation side, so that we don't come back to you and say, we have to spend X amount of dollars to dig everything up because we weren't trying to maintain it. So I think this plan has a mixture of items that show needs as far as being proactive and getting ahead of things. Same thing with the tennis courts. Those are the official tennis courts that our tennis team practice on. As much as I would love to just code it, that is something that we just can't do. We've coded it before. It is time that we revamp them so that we make sure that there's not dead balls, that it is a official place where our tennis team can do what they need to do and participate and hold events. So again, the plan is very fluid. Again, it'll be reassessed each year. We've also talked about some of the areas that were included in the plan that we considered operational. Charles and I and Dr. Yannicone are working on a 5-year operational plan. Things in that include painting cycles, furniture replacement, some of the things that Charles is already talking about with the cyclical things that happen, such as the HVAC filters being replaced. Again, being proactive so that we maintain the equipment that we do have and get the longevity out of it. The other piece that we had talked about, and I know it might have been anticipated by some, but the bus depot conversation. We're going to have that conversation at a final committee meeting of the year, sometime in June, when we set that date where we can talk about the operational plan, the bus replacement plan, and get a little bit more into the bus depot. So I just wanted to say that before questions started. Just hopefully that might have waylaid some of the questions or thoughts that were going on in the committee's mind. So I will open it up to questions. But again, thank you, Doug and his team, for all the work that went into this, because this is a robust document.
Yeah, Carrie, before anyone starts, I just want to finish one thing that you started to say, but I don't think you finished saying what you wanted to say. You said you'd like to tear the pool down, but I know you meant and build a new pool, right? But
Of course.
I just want to be clear, since this is a public meeting, that when you said that,
Sorry
meant
about,
build a new.
yes, I didn't mean to leave that hanging on. Of
Right.
course, I would want to make sure that we have
Right.
an operational and functional pool within our district.
Right.
Thanks.
No
Thanks.
worries. You're welcome.
You can put your hand down now, Mr. DeFranco.
I just want to make sure that the you know the kids that play water sports in you know with the pool, the polo kids and the swimmers, they do a great job. They've got great records, and want to make sure the school's supporting them in that. But you know, money doesn't grow on trees, and natatoriums are ridiculously expensive. So I mean, I get it, but it's nice to see some of these items on the list to address some of the concerns. I know that chlorine gas that's an ongoing thing every single year. And I know it makes the kids struggle. It makes it hard for them to practice when they can't breathe properly. So it's good that we're, you know, continuing to pursue that.
So we just addressed that, or are addressing it actually at Council Rock. They were having a similar issue, and you know, their issue was that they didn't have venting down low, and I suspect that might be the issue here, but we want to confirm that by looking at all the systems. So that's something we'll certainly take a look at. We're, you know, able to add the ventilation we needed to at their natatorium, and you know, likely something that we'll find out what it is, and together we'll resolve it. But
Okay, this is a little bit off topic, but since we're talking about the pool, I know in the past we had talked about soundproofing, and I thought that was in the works somewhere, but I thought it was already in the works. Am I recalling things correctly or incorrectly?
You are. We had a sound engineer come out under Mr. Thorne's leadership, and the ultimately to completely fix or to get it to where it needed to be. I think at level it was a pretty hefty price tag to put the ballards, is that what they're called? The little sound waves that hang from the ceiling. I know that we had gotten a quote for that. That project, I know we did some upgrades through technology for some sound improvements, but we put that on hold knowing that we were getting a capital improvement plan together. So we needed to make sure that we didn't prioritize the sound piece over things like the gas and the HVAC and the tiles being cracked. So we wanted to get those addressed first. Because of the priority and the safety nature of them. Again, I'm not deprioritizing sound, but I think those other three items would hold a priority, or we believed would hold a priority over the sound. It was investigated. There was an engineer that came out to do the sounding. We had talked about putting some soundproof things on the wall around the bleacher setting. But again, in the transition of Mr. Thorne and the start of this project, we kind of put those agenda items on hold. I believe when Mr. Thorne left, the only things that we had in place for projects before this assessment was done were projects that were already put in place, such as the utility pole, the phasing of the high school roof, and then the start of the middle school fields. All other projects that were not discussed in more detail were put on hold until we had this assessment done so that we could evaluate everything in the district to make sure that we were prioritizing correctly. So that piece of it is not lost. It's just that these other items, we'd like to see this get done. And then moving on to another phase within the pool, we can revisit that.
Sounds good.
And you raise a good point. So this plan is updated annually, and it will be will incorporate any items that come up throughout the year that weren't in the initial plan. So if that's something that wants to be added to the plan next year and shows up as a line item in the high school in the book, then we can do that in the next edition. So we'll continue to send questionnaires out each year and collect information and update this so it is a living document.
Any other questions?
Can I
Kara,
just say-
oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Mr. Franco.
I was just gonna say this is, I mean, I know we're only looking at a couple samples of pages and whatnot, but this is it's really exciting to see this come together in a document. And actually, I know we've been talking about this for a while, but I'm excited to see this type of thing, show up in this 5-year planning cycle and actually see these samples of it. This seems like a fantastic start. And I'm excited to actually utilize this going forward with our planning. I think that this is going to be extremely helpful. Or it's already helpful, I should say.
Dr. Yannicone?
Thank you, Kara, and thanks, Mr. DeFranco. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to Doug Taylor and his team. This has been a very extensive project. It's taken the better part of the academic year for the team to work through their assessment, and then for our internal team to really study the results and consider what are the priorities. Part of the challenge for us as a team is that, of course, we look at these things and we have interest in doing as much as possible as quickly as possible. And we know that there are community members who would very much like us, for example, to resurface the tennis courts this summer or finish a roof project. You look at that cost of the roof project at Erdenheim, and every year we delay that project, we're increasing cost. But what this plan does for us, and it is an extensive plan, and I do think it would be worthwhile. My personal preference is that we have the website access, Doug, because I feel like that gives maximum access to all board members to be able to dive in. Whereas if we give out thumb drives or binders, binders can get lost or they can get damaged. Thumb drives can be lost, but access to the website that's interactive, I think really gives maximum accessibility to the team as a whole.
Sure.
With that said, I of course asked for a binder because I like to get my hands on it as well. So we could always do multiple things for the board members. We could give you a binder and we could give you website access. But one of the things that Kara and I have been discussing, not only here in property, but also in finance committee, is that we recognize that over the next 5 years, we will have a reduced Act 1 index. And at the same time, we are continuing to work really hard to be competitive in all of our staffing contracts. And so we want to make sure that we have a really systematic facilities plan that allows us to afford what we know we need to afford, and that we don't get, and I will freely admit that I am a person who can have this happen to them, that we don't get squirreled into saying, wow, wouldn't it be great if the tennis courts were resurfaced this summer? They don't look great, when we have a roofing project or an HVAC project, which are essential to the safe, clean, and dry elements of facilities management, that we're not able to then afford it because we have diminishing ability from a tax base. And so I really appreciate the comprehensive nature of this plan, because it's really helped Charles and Kara and I to focus in on what are the essential projects in the next 5 years, and how can we move off of some of the other items that might be nice but are not essential. And we are following up on this project with an operational plan that you'll see in about a month. Because now that we have this 5-year capital project plan, Kara and Charles and I can go back and take a look at operational pieces. For example, painting classrooms. So most of the classrooms on our campuses could use a refresh, but there is a cost to that. Furniture replacement in 3 of our four schools is certainly something on the horizon for us. And so we're trying to work at what are the capital needs that we have that may need some borrowing? What are the operational needs that we can phase out within the next 5 years within Charles' operational budget? And how can we do all of this while continuing to work towards a balanced budget, which we know we don't currently have. We know we're currently still using fund balance in our budgetary planning. So all of those items are on Kara's and mine and Charles's minds as we look over the next 5 years. And I just wanted to give that sort of global picture to you so that that maybe helps, especially because not everybody on this committee are also on finance. So we're sort of working with those moving parts in both positions, and at the same time trying to be really careful about continuing to provide, great academic program for all of our students moving into the future. So I just thought it was worthwhile for me to share that. And if there's any questions about any of that, we're all happy to answer it. But that's sort of where we are looking at capital projects, operational projects, and then obviously continued competitive pay for our staff and budgeting over the next 5 years that we know is going to become, I'll say, more challenging than it's been in the past 5 years. Because the last 5 years, the index went up every year, but now it's going to be going down every year.
Any other questions? Doug, if you can stop sharing your screen there we go. No questions, everybody's good. And like Dr. Yannicone said, with the maximum accessibility, we will make sure that we have website access so that you can get into this document. I too, like Dr. Yannicone, like paper, so I do have a trusty dusty binder. If anybody from the committee would like, on top of the website access, would like a binder or would like it differently, please let me know. We can make sure that we get that to you ASAP. Again, there is Owen. Always happy to see the class representative or student representative here. Do you have any questions? A lot of information presented.
No, I'm good. I was actually gonna bring up the turf, so I'm glad you guys brought that up today. But other
Absolutely.
than that, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, and I have a question for you. You mentioned the turf, so you can feel a difference from year to year?
Yeah, I think you can feel a difference year to year, definitely. I think it definitely feels different than when it first was there. I remember I was in like elementary school when it first went up, and it's definitely different, a lot different from when it was then.
Okay, that's good feedback.
Thank you. Okay, like I said, if you want a different mechanism of the draft, please let me know. We'll make sure that we get that to you. Other than that, Mr. Watley, anything closing?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Yannicone, good.
Yes, no, thank you to everybody on the team. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody have a great day, and we're under an hour and a half with all that information. So thank you, Doug. Thank you, Colin, again. Everybody enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you. Take care.
Thanks,
You
take
too.
care.